So I was gonna repot some plants this morning, but I think Kippee might need to lay an egg. She gets really ornery in the morning when she needs to lay an egg, but I'll see how she does. Sometimes she likes to help me repot some plants. I got some new ones in from Steve's Leaves. Actually did a little unboxing of these. Need to repot them now. I don't usually repot them right away. So I got this begonia because I really liked the color of it. It matches the paint color in my kitchen. I also get really nice northeast facing window light, and that's perfect for this begonia. So this is a pretty small pot, 3.5 inches. I could actually probably repot this in a smaller pot like this. No problems. Oh yeah, that'll be fine. This is just a mix of succulent soil and some perlite. Begonias are also really easy to propagate, but they just take a little while longer, especially if you don't have greenhouse conditions, which I don't. I kind of use spoons to do edges like this because sometimes even a small shovel is too big. I'll just give this a little bit of water. Kippee's coming over. She likes to... That's her little mischievous voice. She tends to like to get into the soil and eat the perlite. Yeah, no, you can't take a dust bath in there. Oops, overwatered. This is gonna be a total mess, and it's not all gonna be because of me, is it? Nope, nope, nope. So if you have this extra water, you could just pour it out. This is a little bit of a shallow basin, but you don't want the water sitting in the base of your plant because the plant could soak that back up and asphyxiate the roots. I'm just pouring out the water here. And then this is the plant. You could see how well it actually matches the color of my paint over here. So I'm gonna put this one, if I can, I might actually switch these around. I might put this one back here. Okay. So I'm gonna take the Sygnonium out. See if I can put the begonia back there. And then put this beautiful euphorbia that my friend Alex gave me. And try to move this impatiens out of the way. It looks like this impatien's about to bloom. But there's a little flower bud forming right there. Really cool. This one's a little bit of a stemmy guy. Got so much stuff going on here. All right. I'm gonna put the Sygnonium over here because he's a little bit more tall. He's taller than this guy over here. And my Ripsalis fell out of this. Sometimes you need like a plant pin to put these in. Ripsalis doesn't need to be too well watered. They could withstand drying out. Put this away and time to pot up some new plants. All right, what is up next, Kippee? Do you want to try some begonia leaf? Ooh. Oh yeah, like it? This is what would happen if I left my plants on my floor. I'd like to figure out where I could plant this Episcia. Actually, I could cut off some of these dead leaves here. To figure out where I could plant this Episcia. Some of the Cissus came off. Actually, I could cut off some of these dead leaves here. Uh-oh, she just, I think, turned off my audio. Are you pausing my audio? Okay, this is Episcia Strawberry Patch. It really doesn't look like much, but I have to tell you, in the light, this is such a beautiful metallic sheen. All right, these all got a little dry because I waited on planting them, but Epicias are really hardy. They're actually one of the easier plants to take care of. They could get a little scraggly looking, but they generally like to spill down rocks, and they don't live in actually too much soil, so you could give them pretty rocky soil and they would be fine. Almost like a succulent. Okay, so I might not have a pot that I'd like to plant this in. Maybe I'll put them in here because I think the others, although I might like to use this for the Cissus. Actually, that's what I think I'm going to do. Even though this has to be repotted up elsewhere, I'm going to repot this one here because I have another one in the workroom that I'd actually like to repot in here as well. So I just ripped off this Cissus. This happens, you break a piece of the plant. It's kind of sad because this one was like the little long bit kind of hanging off of it. But what I'll do is actually go over here and put it in some sphagnum. And this should root up no problem. I actually rooted up one of these for the plant swap, and the girl who actually ended up taking the Cissus adenopodum from the plant swap has a beautiful Cissus now scrambling up her wall, which is like super cool. Oh, I forgot that I have this pot too, which is a really nice pot. So you'll see how I have a lot of plants in sphagnum right now. This is a Hoya that I have in sphagnum. These are pieces of the Hoya that I had broken off when I was retrellising the Hoya. So we'll see if these will actually take. And I have this Tradescantia right here. And now I have to find a right kind of pot to plant it in, and I might do it just within this cup right here. And this is some long fiber sphagnum. This is pretty dry, so you actually have to kind of break it up and give it some water. You want to keep the bottom of the plant that you kind of broke off pretty moist. Not soggy, but moist. So I'm going to take my finger and make like a little hole down there. And then I'm going to put this guy in there, just like that. And make sure that its sphagnum is well formed around it. I may actually just put a little extra in, because if it ever dries out, then the plant won't fall right out. It's neutral and doesn't carry any kind of pests. So unless your cutting had pests, I wouldn't have any qualms on reusing this. It's a natural resource that is really not renewable. This plant might actually start to wilt a little bit because it doesn't have roots, but you could encourage root growth along even if it's in the winter months by putting it on a heat pad and putting it in gentle light. So that's what I have actually back here. I'll move this primulina so you could actually see that there's a heat pad back here, right here. And that just keeps it slightly above like room temperature, which is great for plant roots. It does dry out the sphagnum a little bit more, but if you give yourself reminders on keeping the sphagnum moist, I think this will benefit it in the long run. I'm gonna go back to potting this up. And this will grow pretty quickly. There's another, kind of terminal end right here, and that will start pumping out some new vines. These plants are incredibly resilient. They're like, I think they're in the family Vitaceae, which is the grapevine family. So they can grow pretty quickly, especially if given something to grow on. So you see I just put half of this in here. I'm going to put the other half of the plant in the workroom in here as well. And I'm going to finish this up in the workroom. Here, Kippee, do you want some soil? Go ahead. So if you see here, I have the Cissus adenopodum actually growing up and scrambling up my bookshelf. It gets pretty dry because I'm growing it in a very small container, as you could see. So what I'm gonna do is combine these two just like this. It's gonna be a little bit messy, but I'm gonna reuse this container. Awesome, because I need a new container. And I'm going to kind of sloppily include this here along with this, and I'm gonna have to get some more soil. And then I'll water this plant. And that way I'll have another side of this. And if I don't want to give that other Cissus adenopoda away at the plant swap, then I could actually plant it up in here. So let me just do this, get some more soil. I'm gonna have to clean this pot out now. All right, gotta take some more soil in there while the bird runs. So I'm just gonna fill up some of these gaps with this extra soil here. Again, not ideally how I like to repot a plant, but unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to get this one off. I'll just give you a little bit of water. And give this one a little bit of water. Might as well just give some extra water to these guys. All right, so that one's finished. So now I have this extra pot, which is exciting. So what I'll do, even though I don't think that Cissus had any problems with it, meaning any pestiferous insects, I'm gonna get rid of the old soil. I'm gonna compost this. This is my little compost bin down here. This is not a high-fired terracotta pot, you could tell. It's like kind of falling apart. These don't last long as some of the regular terracotta, but I like the kind of old look. So this one I'm just gonna wash out. I'm gonna use a little bit of more eco-friendly detergent, just a little bit like that. I'm gonna use a strong bristled brush just to kind of get in there. And I don't need to like be totally maniacal or OCD about cleaning these, but just enough to kind of knock anything out that could have been a potential vector to harm the next plant. So you see that's pretty clean. And I can now pot a new plant up in there. This is the Episcia, so I think I'm actually gonna plant the Episcia in here. So I'm just gonna take some of this soil. And again, Epicias don't mind a little rocky soil, so I might take some of this bonsai soil here, like just a handful of it. Let's just wrap it up in there, so it's a little bit easier. And mix it around. This has some clay in it, and it has some perlite. Now let's see if this actually fits in there nicely. Oh, it does. It might need to be pressed in there because this pot does taper down below a little bit. These don't need a tremendous amount of light either. They can't go totally no light, low light, but Kippee's looking to lay an egg. I'm actually gonna put this back into the other room because this will fit nicely on that shelf. I just can't forget to water it because sometimes when I put them too far back on the shelf, I do forget to water plants. I'll put this one back here behind the Cissus I had. There you go. Put that right there with the Hoya. My other Hoya. And my other Hoya. Here's an example of an Episcia. This one got really hangy. Like I could probably cull some of these dead leaves that get shaded out in the back. You could see it'd be easy to actually propagate these things. But typically in the wild, you'd see them growing down rocks and clinging to like little moss and escarpments, that type of thing. So, but you see it actually makes a nice kind of hanging plant. I would love to plant this Hoya Hoya crassipes. And these don't require a huge pot. This is actually quite big, but because this is so all over the place and has potential to hang, I want a pot that's quite sturdy. And if you might get a sense by looking at this pot, but if you feel this pot, it's actually quite heavy. Typically, I like to plant Hoyas in terracotta because they don't like to have their roots sitting in water, and this type of ceramic pot is going to be a risk because it's glazed and it'll keep the water in. So it's not really porous. Let me just see if I have a terracotta pot that this could fit in. Oh yeah, something like this might actually work. Let me just grab these. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, these are nice. I think this one will actually be good. This one has a huge hole in the bottom though. So what I'm gonna do is, let's see if this fits. Oh, perfect. So what's great about this kind of terracotta base, can't always find these places, but if you'll see, it's actually glazed on the inside, not on the outside. So why I like these better is if you put these on wood, this doesn't leak water from the bottom because this is so porous, water comes in and out of it, it's breathable. But it's handy to have a glaze on the base so that the water doesn't come through to your surface below. So I'm not exactly certain why not all of them are glazed. I mean, they're a little bit more expensive, but not so much so that it's cost prohibitive for most people. Here is this, because I have such a large hole in the bottom, I'm gonna just put that like that. That's so the soil doesn't come through, but the water is allowed to come through. Kippee is pecking my shoes in the back. Okay. This bark mix is great for epiphytic plants like Hoyas, so I'm going to get a little bit more of that in here. And some more of this bonsai soil mix. And you'll see that this is a very kind of rocky mix that this grower had this plant growing in. Get some of this tape off. Okay. I'm not matching the soil completely, or the substrate that this grower had it growing in, but that would be hard to do unless you actually physically bought some of that soil. You can mix, you could do a pre-mix, or you can mix as you go, and I prefer to mix as you go, especially when I'm planting a wide variety of plants. So many different places that I could move this over here.